What's up, Waluigi? Trent from Trentendo. We are getting closer to that Nintendo investors meeting, which is on May 7th, Tuesday, and there's a lot of speculation that we might see something about Nintendo Switch 2 there. At very least, maybe some sort of a code name similar to how they revealed the Nintendo Switch as the NX back in the day. So today I thought it'd be fun to kind of go over everything that we supposedly know about Nintendo Switch 2 as of right now before this investor meeting hits, where there's a chance, I'll say I don't know how big of a chance, but there's a chance that we hear at least some sort of nugget about the next system from Nintendo. So before we hop into all of this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and like this video so you guys are kept up to date with everything going on here at Trentendo. Let's get 20 likes on this, or let's help, I appreciate it, and let's hop right in. Now this is not going to be in any particular order. We're just going to kind of go over the gist of everything we've heard thus far, and some of this is going to be going back to last year, and then we'll get into the more current stuff. So let's just start with some of the very first stuff that we began to hear is coming out of Gamescom 2023, that Nintendo showed off spec'd hardware behind closed doors. Now it wasn't like an actual Switch 2, but they showed games basically running on the hardware specs that they were targeting for their next system. Now there was supposedly the Breath of the Wild was running at 4K in this, and it looked really nice. And then even that they had the PS5 Matrix demo running on Nintendo Switch hardware. And the big caveat was that this looks just as good as it does on the PS5. That Nintendo was using ray tracing and all this kind of AI upscaling stuff in the background to make their system make games look like it was run on something a little bit more powerful than what the Switch 2 supposedly is actually able to do. So that was kind of the first big thing that we saw, that, oh man, this thing is going to be awesome, it's going to run games really well, it's going to be 4K. And then we didn't really hear much, outside of that for a while. The next thing that we kind of got here was we got the colored button theory. Now this one came, as we got after, I think this one came after Gamescom if I'm remembering correct. But we had a bunch of games come out where all of a sudden there was colored buttons within the UI for these games. And even now that we're getting ready for Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door to hit in a couple of weeks, that was one of the first games that people noticed it in, is in the reveal trailer, that they had these colored buttons that was matching, Mario's attack and jump and all that stuff. And it wasn't matching up with what the GameCube was, but rather with what the Super Nintendo was, or the Super Famicom, making people think that maybe this is, the way that Nintendo's going to try to differentiate the Switch from the Switch 2 in one way is with these colored buttons, and they're going to be reminiscent of what they did on the Super Nintendo. So that was another thing. So supposedly we're going to have upscaling AI, ray tracing, 4K Breath of the Wild, and colored buttons. Now, this is where we're starting to get into a couple of some of the newer stuff, because that was all last year for the most part. But then we got some stuff saying that this was kind of one of the bummers, was there's going to be LCD panels. So going back to the LCD panel, not going to be an OLED. But then more recently that's been kind of changed, and there is some thought that potentially it is going to have an OLED panel, that Samsung is going to be the producer of it. So still, all of this is all rumor, all this is all speculation. So that's the kind of the one thing that has been floated out, that yes, we are actually going to get a OLED panel. It's going to be from Samsung, but initially it was an LCD panel. But now we're also getting reports that it's going to be 1080p in handheld, which is up from 720p that we get now, and it will be 4K docked, kind of going along with all the other stuff we've heard. So we've gotten all this, this power, the colored buttons. And then supposedly in March of this year, which is now passed and we still don't know anything, there was supposed to be some sort of a big Nintendo Switch 2 blowout. That never happened. And shortly, after we kind of had this news break that, maybe we're going to see something in March, it was like within a couple of days, it felt like all of a sudden it was bam, Switch is going to be delayed until 2025, March at the earliest next year. So they had all these hype, all these reports coming out of what we could expect, when we're going to see it, when's it going to get revealed, and then all that just kind of got the floor ripped out from underneath it. And now here we are sitting still with nothing official from Nintendo. That hopefully will change soon. So we've got all that stuff. Now we've even got more. Let's keep going. We've got the Switch Attach surveys. Now this was a YouTube survey that got put on a couple of videos, and it asked, how likely are you going to be to purchase one of the following consoles? I had a PlayStation 5, an Xbox Series X, X, and then the Switch Attach. Now this one's a little bit interesting though, because at first everyone's like, this is so stupid. That is a terrible naming convention, and it was just bad enough that people were worried that maybe this is something Nintendo actually would consider. And then I feel like I kind of forgot about it, and it wasn't that big a deal. But then this next thing makes me think that this actually has a chance. It's got a shot at being the actual name, because we had Vandal coming out, that article just actually last week, I think now at this point, suggesting and saying that we're going to have magnetic Joy-Con that's going to have like an electromagnet that's going, rather than the rails, that's going to be an electromagnet that attach to the side. So if this is really the mechanism that Nintendo's going to run with to attach the Joy-Cons to the Switch Attach actually makes a lot of sense. I don't personally like it. I don't think that I guess it makes sense in the fact that Nintendo might run with it. I don't think it makes sense for a lot of other reasons. I won't get into that, but makes me think twice about this Switch Attach survey, and that maybe there is more to this than we actually think. So then just even a couple of days after that though, we had this whole thing about the electromagnets from Vandal. MobaPad, a Chinese manufacturer for Switch third-party accessories, they basically came out and corroborated it and said this is what it's going to be, and then they dropped a ton more stuff. Let's go over a little bit what they had to say as well. So they're gonna have magnetic Joy-Cons, the Joy-Cons, the old Joy-Cons, and the current Joy-Cons and the current Pro controllers, which will be old when Switch 2 comes out. They will still work with Switch 2 just via Bluetooth. And there's not gonna be rails to slide them on. But you're going to be able to at least Bluetooth them in if you have all these Joy-Cons. So there's going to be a way to do it. You're going to have metal buttons, supposedly. Excuse me. There's going to be an extra button on the below the home button. So there's going to be some extra stuff there we don't know quite about. The big one, it will be backwards compatible according to this report. So there's going to be some sort of a knob potentially, or some mechanism that's going to prevent Switch 2 games from being put in a current Switch, but Switch games will fit just fine in the Switch 2, and supposedly the virtual eShop stuff is going to work with that as well. So we got that going for us. The next, is they were kind of talking about this, we had the idea that they could handle the Switch 2 in an opaque box, so they couldn't quite really get a good look at it, but they could at least feel it and touch it and get an idea of the dimensions and what it's going to be like, so they would be able to manufacture stuff for it. So Nintendo's really trying to keep a lot of secrecy here. And then even we had some stuff saying that this might actually come out this year after all. The way Nintendo's kind of handled stuff, it's made people very intrigued, to say the least, and there is some speculation that this does indeed actually come out this year, that maybe this March leak of it's getting delayed, maybe that was a fake leak that Nintendo might be trying to throw people off the scent, can maintain that secrecy. So there's a lot of conspiracy now even thrown into this, so potentially coming out this year still. And then last week we also had this Pioro leak that ended up being nothing even related to Switch 2, but people were just going absolutely wild, thinking that this was a Switch 2 related thing, and ended up being the NES World Championship Edition that's probably going to be coming to Nintendo Switch. So I think this is kind of where we're at right now. We have all of this information, colored buttons, stuff they heard at Gamescom, the panels, the electromagnetic Joy-Con, the backwards compatibility, maybe it's an OLED, maybe it's an LCD. So all of this stuff, at the end of the day, we really don't know whether it's true or not. And as we get closer to this May 7th date, there is a chance we hear something. At the very least, I think at the very least we get some sort of a code name. Nintendo's going to need to tell their investors and their shareholders what their plans are for this next fiscal year, which ends in March next year. And if for whatever reason the Switch 2 is not coming out by March, then we won't hear about it. So that if you're Team 2025 and late 2025, you're hoping that they don't say anything at this investors meeting. But if they say something, it's coming out before the end of March of next year. So there is a lot to kind of hang on to this meeting. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what Nintendo does if we actually even hear anything. But the fact that we haven't had a Nintendo Direct, a full Nintendo Direct really, because we had a partner showcase, we've had an Indie World, we've got Thousand Year Door and Luigi's Mansion coming out. But other than that, that's all we have left now. We got 2 games. And Nintendo's going to try to fill the gap with stuff like this NES World Championships. Maybe we see a Wind Waker, maybe we see Twilight Princess or a Metroid Prime 2, something like that to kind of hold fans over. But the way that things are going right now, I think there's a pretty good shot we actually might hear something within the next couple of days at this investors meeting. At the very least, just a code name, or even if you don't even get a code name, maybe just some sort of acknowledgement that this is in the works. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts down below, though. What do you guys think about all this? Does any of this have you hyped? Are you buying any of this, or is this all just tinfoil hat territory, and until Nintendo actually says something, you don't even want to pay attention? So I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. Hope you guys enjoyed this update. Let me know, like I said, what your guys' thoughts are. I'm really interested to hear what your thoughts around the matter are. Hope you enjoyed, and until next time, catch you later.